Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A game. Ain't made no rain from the track when we unite and spit. This isn't A game, better bring your A game. Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A game. Ain't made no rain from the track when we...
And welcome to the Mike and JD show. I'm JD Oliva, and I screwed up the intro because I can never remember how Mike does it. As you can see, Mike's not here today. I'm joined by my good buddy Scott E. Wrestling, who was our guest last week and so graciously agreed to step in for Mike, who is doing military business tonight. I don't know. I think they sent him on some kind of wet works operation. I have no idea. Scott, thanks for coming in and joining us today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me right back. Last week I maybe have said too much and got myself in trouble, but it's fine. It's fine. I can only imagine I could do it again.
I live there. I get myself in trouble constantly on this show, and I'm going to have to eat some shit for it later tonight, which will be fun. So, What's going on with you this week, man?
Oh, nothing. It's an AEW pay-per-view week. I gotta get used to these. These happen a lot now, so I'm trying to get them in my head that it's once a month. But I think you and Mike always talk about that on the show really well, of how it's that will work for fans better, right? Because they'll be more programmed.
I think that's going to help with the booking. I think it already has helped with booking. Yeah. I know last night's show was pretty divisive, shall we say? I liked it, but I was on some of the Slack channels that I'm part of, and it seems like a lot of people really hated it. It didn't bother me. I think the MJF segment went on for an eternity, but by the end of it, I was pretty entertained.
Yeah.
Right. So they're really leaning into Max stuff right now. But by the end of it, I thought it was great. I thought the Swerve thing was awesome. I think Swerve's really stepped up and stepped into what's building into a main event heel situation. I think this is a really big show for him. And man, I got to tell you, I absolutely love that show closing angle.
Yeah. I'm in total agreement with you. I thought it was the perfect way to sell the show. And I think that's why I loved Dynamite so much, because they were selling you that pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I don't think AEW does that all the time. I know everyone wants the big, cool matches. I understand that. I like big, cool matches too. I love them. But they really focused on segments to build towards the future with the MJF stuff for both of their shows, right? They pretty much are building the full gear, I assume, with Jay White. I don't think they're just going to give that one away on TV, or at least I hope not. And then with Swerve and Hangman, I thought they ended the show perfectly. I think Swerve is going to be world champion within the next year and a half. I think he's just on this meteoric rise as he should be, and Hangman's the perfect dance partner for what they're trying to do with him.
No, I completely agree. I think that sometimes we as fans need to get out of this box that we put ourselves, that the pay-per-view has to be main evented by the world champion defending his title, and that this is the way it's got to be. Like I said, I grew up in the 90s, and I really liked WCW. I think I made that abundantly clear on this show numerous times over. And one of the things I really liked about WCW was they would mix up what the main event of a pay-per-view was. My second favorite actually WCW pay-per-view was Spring Stampede 1997, which was headlined by Diamond Dallas Page versus Randy Savage. No titles were on the line. It was just a grudge match between two guys who did not like each other, and it elevated a guy from the mid-card into the main event scene. Right? That was a pay-per-view main event. And I don't think it's a bad thing to do that all the time. Right? I think that the last pay-per-view we had didn't have that either. It was different. It was Orange Cassidy and Moxley was the main event. And I think that's okay that we're kind of mixing these up a little bit. Max is doing Max stuff, and it's over. It's working for some people. Some people hate it. What I like about it is that it's not the entire show, right? It's not the tone of the entire program. This is what you're going to get with MJF and Adam Cole. Or I don't know, maybe just MJF now, depending on Adam Cole's foot's going to be. Yeah. But the rest of the show still feels like Dynamite to me. And I know that bothers people. I know that people get upset if they don't get just straight hardline wrestling for every segment. But I kind of like it. I mean, last week's show was all wrestling, bell to bell, wall to wall, dudes beating each other's asses. It was great. But this week we kind of slowed it down a little bit, and we told, quote unquote, some stories. And I thought the promos were fantastic last night.
Me too. I think a lot of people with AEW, when they think of the different brands from WWE. They think it has to be so much about the wrestling. But again, I love when they tell those stories, and that's what they were doing. They were telling those stories and getting us into new stories with MJF, right? They pretty much had to close the door on what is their biggest story for a little bit with the Adam Cole stuff. And by the end of the night, they gave us our next big story.
Yeah.
And that is with MJF and Jay White and whatever happened to close out that show, which is very exciting. So to me, it's AEW, they're trying new things. And I think for me, using these segments to, again, push along stories, that's what pro wrestling is. You're building to the match. It doesn't have to just be the match. And like you said, last week was all matches.
Mm-hmm. No, and I agree 100%. Like, I think maybe it's because I'm an amateur wrestling guy. Like, I actually have this feeling like in my head that if I want to watch wrestling, I'm gonna go watch like real wrestling, right? Like that scratches my itch with that. Like when I watch pro wrestling, I do want some storytelling, right? I have a hard time getting excited for things that's just a match, right? Like me, and I like that this card is doing this. This card is a double main event, right? And one match is built pure dream match, right?
Yes.
Very little build to Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. The other one is Swerve and Hangman, and that's like all story, right? I'm a fan of that. Like I like that we're trying to get a balance going right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm enjoying that they're experimenting with the formatting a little bit, and then that's frustrating with some people because they want to see everything just like slick and like what it's supposed to be. But I don't know. It's kind of the warts on things that make me appreciate them. Maybe that's just the creative mind of me, but I really enjoy seeing people maybe kind of struggle a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it has to be gritty in a lot of ways. And looking at that pay-per-view, looking at Wrestle Dream, there are so many great matches. Like there's so many great matches. You have FTR and Aussie Open, right? The story there is it's 1 year after their Royal Quest match. You have Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr., but then you have the continuation of Ricky Starks' story by going with the Wheeler Yuta match. Like you said, Swerve and Hangman, they've built that up to feel like a world title feud. And I think the best part about how they're planning these pay-per-views out is assuming they have 12 pay-per-views a year, I'm not going to have to worry about MJF having to switch from feud to feud to feud to feud, right? That's not what you want him to do. You want him to have these long built out feuds. So when the match happens, it feels as important as when we had the 4 to 5 pay-per-views for AEW per year.
And we just had a really well-built MJF title feud. Like that and it was great. They took the time, they built the Joe thing in just a little over a month, and it was really good. If they had forced something now, it wouldn't have happened. And they had to make that Grand Slam work. Right. So let's get into this. David Hadley wants to know if the group of attackers is meant to be Cole and company. I kind of want to see Roderick Strong have been a pawn in the whole ordeal. Okay, man, let's get into this. This is what I really want to talk about. I love a mystery in pro wrestling. Oop. One more time. I downloaded that and wanted to make it work in it. And if Mike's way better at producing than I am, and I'm the guy with the video background, ironically enough. So I love this story. And I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he said he was into it too. Nameless guy. He says it has to mean something, and I agree. If you're going to introduce a mystery into pro wrestling, it has to count. Because the way I look at it, it can go one of two ways. It can go the Black Scorpion, or it can go the Third Man. Right? The Black Scorpion is the all-time greatest example of a complete, total clusterfuck of a failure of the storyline. And the Third Man is responsible for reigniting the professional wrestling business in the 1990s. This has to go one way or the other. And I don't know, man. I came out of Dynamite last night really intrigued because we're meant to think it's MJF looking at the devil, right? But then we go, it can't be MJF. Too obvious. I think it's Cole.
Yeah.
But maybe it isn't. What do you think?
One of my favorite things that you can do in any form of media is leave me with a cliffhanger, whether it's a TV show, whether it's a movie, whether it's like, it's the best because it leaves people talking. That's all I saw on my feed, right? People were like, oh, that kind of looks like, people were trying to figure out the body shape. I was like, if it even is the person in there, it's they're not going to do that. And ultimately, the idea is you're gonna pretty much rule out MJF, right? You're not going to actually think it was MJF in doing so. So who is it? I think the idea of it being all a throw off long term of being Adam Cole, Roddy. I've seen this is the one I've seen commonly. Roddy, Kyle O'Reilly, and the Kingdom, like just the whole group doing it. And I think that's a interesting way to throw it off. But the fun aspect for me is the first thing I thought was that Goober group from last year that broke
Oh,
off.
the Firm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's the first thing I thought of, and I was like, well, no, because the Guns are now in Bullet Club Gold. But that was the first thing that just popped in my head. I was like, are they bringing them back, or like are they? Because I think most of the people from the Firm don't do anything anymore, if I'm not mistaken. Lee Moriarty, I guess, is with Shane Taylor
He's
now.
with Shane Taylor and ROH.
Ethan Page is definitely not doing anything.
Ethan Page is hanging out with the Hardys on Rampage. Who else? Big Bill is with
Big Bill's with Ricky. So I guess there's more of them are doing things now than they were.
But they're not doing. And Stokely is Stokely in witness protection? I'm not even sure what's going on.
I think he's like a authority figure on Ring of Honor. So yeah, he doesn't exist right now.
Who watches Ring of Honor? I mean, I can't do that.
Who do you think?
I don't know. My first, like everyone else, went to Cole. But again, I'm a big okay. So I'm intrigued by mysteries, right? I love storytelling. I love writing, and every time I've tried to write a mystery, it's really hard, right? Because like sometimes you have this mystery in mind, but it's in order to write a successful mystery, you have to have the end and you have to work backwards. Like I use the Black Scorpion example because they want to do the Black Scorpion, and we did 2 of our Patreon shows. It bridged us from Fight Game here to Voices Wrestling, that we had the one episode and then the other on the 2 different networks. But I mean, that was like they had the idea, oh, we want to have the Black Scorpion. But then they didn't really know who was going to be the guy. Consequently, like you said, it doesn't. People are judging the body type. Don't judge the body type, because whoever was supposed to be it might not be it. This is wrestling. Flair only played the Black Scorpion at Starrcade 90 because he was never supposed to be the Black Scorpion. They didn't know who the Black Scorpion was supposed to be. So, I mean, like, it's hard you can't really think about it in those terms. Like, that's why I always prefer Columbo. You're young. Are you familiar with Columbo? Let me tell you about Columbo. Let the old man have a conversation. This predates me. Columbo is a show about a detective in the 70s, played by an actor named Peter Falk, who was this schlubby-looking guy with his wrinkled-ass trench coat, who was the smartest dude in the room, but nobody ever took him seriously because he didn't look like anything, and he acted like kind of a stuttering guy, and he constantly solved the crime. Now, what made Columbo cool was that at the end of the formulaic was you watch the episode before the titles. You saw who did the crime. So you knew, as the audience, you knew who was responsible the whole time. Yeah. And the whole fun of the show is watching Columbo figure it out. Those stories are way easier to do than the actual mystery. I mean, I read a mystery book last year by an author. I'm not going to name his name because I don't want to bury the guy publicly. But like, I was really in this book for like 400 pages. In the last 30 pages, he throws at you a bunch of information that you couldn't possibly have known reading the book. And I felt like I was cheated. And it really bummed me out. So, I mean, like, whatever their plan is, it has to make sense. I almost don't care who's underneath the mask, as long as it advances the story and makes sense. And it's not just some random dude that they threw in there. And if it is going to be some random they threw in, build it, right? Yeah. I had another thought, too, of who it could be. What if it's Edge?
Edge does have a history of the mask, and I know it's a little different, but there is a history there.
It is, and I thought of that, and then I went to myself, I don't know why he would be there. I have no storyline idea for who that would, for why.
I do have one in mind.
What do you got?
The War Dogs, the Bullet Club War Dogs of New Japan.
Okay.
Because David Finlay took Jay White out, obviously, to take over the group. And maybe this is them dressing as that to blame it on MJF. Ultimately, somewhere down the line, the War Dogs are coming over to set something up there. That's always a possibility, because that relationship always hangs over.
Okay, that's super interesting too, because like the New Japan Bullet Club has really not acknowledged this US splinter group too much. So that would be super fascinating if David Finlay were to play spoiler and almost kind of like disrupt the MJF Adam Cole relationship, so to say, while at the same time striking.
Mhm.
Dude, that's actually a really good idea. I kind of hope they, although none of those guys looked as jacked as Alex Coughlin, but again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who was in there last night. What matters is who's going to be there when push come to shove. We got some comments I'm going to hit up before we go back. David Hadley says Christian versus Darby is a big match too. AEW has 3 of their hometown home state guys in match of substance. Yeah, that is a big match actually. Like AEW's kind of made a reputation for not necessarily burying the hometown guys, right? They they don't always have the hometown guy win, but boy, with Swerve and Darby, those would be big. And Danielson. Yeah, I would not surprise me if all 3 of those guys pulled out victories on Sunday.
I agree.
Dobie the Brain, Patreon subscriber. It's funny how Jane White had a superstar segment and it feels like a real threat to MJF and he's not even on the Wrestle Dream card. Well, kayfabe, he's not supposed to be on the Wrestle Dream card. He just got his ass kicked by a group of assassins.
There you go.
See how I can do that?
Sell.
That being said, dude, I thought Jay White knocked it out of the fucking park last night.
I did too. He's money.
I think it's incredible. The best thing he's done. It's the best thing he's done since he got to AEW. And that's a dude that has made the most of his minutes since he got here. It's been a lot of fun finally watching him get an opportunity. Same with Juice. Juice seems reinvigorated in this group. And the dumbass Guns seem like they're finally found a home. Like they're perfect for the dorks in this group. It fits.
Were you a fan of Jay before in New Japan? Were you a fan of Jay?
I liked Jay White until the last year or so of the run. I felt like he got so long in the tooth, and I got so tired of Jay White's shenanigans with Gato and everything being so long and drawn out. It really seemed like he had hit a creative lull in New Japan, and I was really happy to see him come over here. And I do think he does seem, even though he hasn't done a ton until recently, I do think it's been a good move for him.
I agree. I love Jay, but I'll let you see.
No, he's great. I love Jay White. I think he's another one who could be a world champion in a year plus. He's a guy. Him and Swerve are guys this company needs to start focusing toward building. Right. We need to start elevating the next group, and it seems like kind of what's happening here with Swerve and Jay White and Adam Cole and MJF are already there. So it seems like we're starting to shift into the next wave of main event talent, which they have to, because most of the main eventers are either going to WWE like CM Punk have been fired, or they're in their 40s.
Exactly. On my podcast, I tossed out these 4 for MJF. It was Takeshita, obviously, down the line. Jay White, because that just felt natural. Swerve, which I think we'll get to, and then Ospreay when I think he inevitably signs. So
here's what makes all 4 of those work is that now we have a completely new version of MJF. We have babyface MJF, right? So it totally refreshes what he can do. And say what you want, you might not like his WWE-esque presentation, but the fucker's over, right? You go into the buildings and the guy is over right now. So I think you just got to steer with what works, and something's going to catch on. Like I said, I think this masked man story could really work. Like, I think if they draw the intrigue right, leave some clues, like really bait a hook, I think this could be something. Hiru, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Hiru says, if the end game is Cole winning the AEW title, does TK trust him given his injury history? I don't think that's the end game, because Adam Cole's going to be out for a while, right? Like, he broke his ankle in 3 places and tore some ligaments. Like, that's a surgery. I mean, like, if he's back in 4 to 6 months, I think that's a conservative estimate.
Unless it was a lie and he's the man in the mask.
Yeah, I thought about that too. Because the man in the mask didn't touch. The man in the mask didn't touch anybody. He was just directing traffic. So I thought that's initially what pushed me to Adam Cole. And you can have the guy in the show while he's doing rehab, just have him in a walking boot. It's not impossible to do that. Now, does Tony Khan trust him given his injury history? The dude got a concussion. You can't control that. You have Bryan Danielson headlining this pay-per-view, who famously had to retire from having concussions. Right. And then Adam Cole, what are you going to do? Like, the guy, it was an accident. right? Dudes break their ankle. Like, it happens. I mean, like, I don't think you can fault that. Anybody, here's what's reality about sports. Anybody can get hurt doing anything at any given moment. I
Mhm.
was wrestling with one of the kids on last Monday and my hamstring popped, right? Stuff just
Mhm.
happens. So you can't worry about whether or not someone's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
David Hadley again. The good thing is going to be with Cole, with the gear, they could some of the smaller size in the mask with Cole in mind. With Cole in mind, they totally could do that if it's Cole at all. Like I said, when we had the Black Scorpion, it was Al Perez and the Angel of Death, and it was all kinds of guys other than Ric Flair under that mask because they needed a guy to be the Scorpion, right? David Hadley, the only U.S. splinter group that's acknowledged is the Little Bullet Club Camp and Impact, ABC. Right?
ABC. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always
Respect.
forget they're part of Bullet Club.
Because they don't seem like it, but they are. Like, it's Impact, man.
Yeah, that's true.
And finally, Christian would be a good opponent for MJF too. Is MJF's dad dead? I think he's alive and well. So I don't quite know if that fits in. But let's be real right now. I think Christian Cage is doing some of the best work of his entire career.
When he has the cage part added to the end of his name, he's usually doing some of the best work of his career.
I agree with that. I always thought, again, brace for impact guy. I always thought that Christian Cage was significantly cooler than just Christian. There's just something about Christian outside of the WWE that made him far more interesting to me. Like, I just thought his Impact run was so much more interesting than anything he was doing in WWE. Like, I'll take those 2.5 years, and I don't think he was really happy with them, but I'll take those 2.5 years in Impact over what he did for a good chunk of his WWE career. And I love this one too. I think he's been great for AEW. He was the great veteran babyface when he first came in, headlined the biggest show they've ever had, right? All Out 2021. And now he's far and away the most interesting heel who just talks about your dead dad and, tries to get on your mom. Like, what? He's a walking mom joke. It's the best.
So Edge is going to be the savior in that, right?
Okay, honestly, because I think from a little birdie that I know, the rumor, and we might as well talk about this right now because I want to get your thoughts on this while we're here. The rumor flying around is that Adam Copeland and Mercedes Moné have signed with AEW.
I think the Mercedes one's been known, right? They
Yeah,
put her
I
on
think
the
so.
biggest
They
show
put her
ever.
on the biggest show of the year. Like, but that's like officially, like, I saw that today in certain Slack or certain Discord group. And what do you think about that? About both those signings? Because I think they're vastly different signings.
They are. I think Edge is a good veteran to add. He's a good leader. He's, from everything that I've ever read and ever saw about Edge, he's like almost the opposite of my guy CM Punk in that, he's gonna help people. He's not gonna anger people backstage all the time. He's not gonna take over that big time role either. And it looks like he just wants to have this, final run the way he wants, right? So, like, to me, that's why Edge is coming here. On the other side, Mercedes Moné, I think I said this last week when I was on the show. You have to dramatically change the women's division if you sign Mercedes Moné, because again, she's going to be top 5 paid in that company, and she's not going to be 5. Like, she is going to charge a lot. She's going to demand a lot of time, and she's going to be one of your biggest draws just based off of history. She was always one of the biggest draws on SmackDown. She was oftentimes a bigger draw than Roman Reigns. I know WWE doesn't want to know that, but she was. I know, but she dramatically changes a lot of things. Edge is just a great veteran to have, I think. I didn't love his most recent WWE run, but a lot of that was also ruined by COVID, so I don't blame him for some of it.
That's true. I think a lot of it too is just the WWE-ness of everything. We've never seen what Adam Copeland is like outside that environment. Part of what makes Christian Cage so cool is we've gotten to see him dabble in a different place. Like, that Impact run really showed what Christian Cage can do. And after so many years away, WWE didn't bite on him. He comes to AEW, plays 2 vastly different characters, and plays by the rules, man. He went to Impact and helped make Josh Alexander.
Yeah,
like, he's done some really great work here. I want to see what Adam Copeland could do in a different environment where he's not weighted down by what WWE is, because people are different outside that organization. Like, Look at Bryan Danielson. Look at John Moxley. Like, these are guys who are completely different now that they're away from WWE. Look at, like, even Claudio Castagnoli. Like, he looks like Cesaro, but there's an intensity to this guy that we just didn't have for years in WWE. And he had great matches. I love Cesaro, don't get me wrong. But Claudio's a different dude,
Yeah,
right?
he is.
Let's see what Adam Copeland can be. By the way, Edge famously raised by a single mother. So take that for what it's worth.
Oh boy.
So you mentioned Mercedes Moné. I'm gonna change direction a little bit. WWE this week announced they signed Jade Cargill, and they rolled out the red carpet for her. Right? They treated her like a star. So that's my question. And now, like, and this brought up this really interesting kind of conundrum in the spaces that we guys like us like to hang out in, where people were like, man, AEW really dropped the ball with Jade. They just didn't do anything to make her a star. And like, I kind of went a little viral. I surprised myself. I had like hundreds of retweets and likes in the post, and like, I say random stupid shit all the time.
You just say your opinion. That's what you say.
That's what I do. I just say, I'll in the middle of class, I'll have a random thought, just jot it down and shoot it off. And sometimes it kind of takes on a life of its own. I just said that it's okay to admit that AEW made her a star, because they did. WWE is treating her like a star. They're not segregating her just to NXT, right? They're rumored 7-figure contracts. Like, it's okay to say AEW made a star and WWE can make her a bigger star. Like, I'm not crazy by conflating those two, am I?
No, not at all. She has like this can't miss aura about her, and without being in AEW, that doesn't happen. Without going on an undefeated streak, that doesn't happen. Sure, we have the complaints about the undefeated streak and how it was handled. That's fine, but she was made a star because of it. Right. And I think her biggest problem was just how AEW's schedule is. Like, she just wasn't going to get the reps there. And that isn't anyone, like, that's just how it goes. That's just the way AEW is molded. So I think moving forward, maybe it'll be very interesting to see how many athletes they bring in as opposed to ready-made wrestlers, because I do think that can be a problem, right? They can't bring in necessarily, like, I mean, I think the Creeds, for example, they would be fine wherever they went just because they have that natural wrestling background. But you bring in Braun Breaker, right? Former football player, for example. Would he be able to become what he has so far in AEW? Maybe not. But either way, back to Jade. She was made a star in AEW, and WWE sees that and says, okay, she's going to be an even bigger star here now, because they can make their crowds agree to that. That's what they do.
Well, and she's repped by Endeavor, right?
Yep.
She's a Cody Rhodes protege. Like, it just makes sense. And like, I think she fits their mold better than she fit the AEW mold. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think AEW should go after athletes.
No, I don't.
I
agree.
Look at Anthony Ogogo, right? We haven't seen, he's still under contract by the promotion, and we haven't seen him in well over 2 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I just I don't see how you do. AEW is a TV company. Their job is to make TV shows. You don't develop well in this company, right? Especially, especially some of the male talent. Like, they sign for the male talent, especially because there's so many. Like, look at a Brock Anderson. Brock Anderson could have been like his dad 30 years ago and just bounced around different territories getting good. Arn Anderson was an excellent professional wrestler at Brock's age, because he had spent years working in the Florida Panhandle and then up in Georgia and just bouncing around getting better. So by the time he got his push as a young guy at the time, they actually pushed Arn as a young guy, even though he looked exactly the same. Like, he was already good. His kid doesn't get those reps, right? And the women, it's the same thing, because they get even fewer reps. And I'm of the mind that there's a lot of people in that locker room that don't do enough. Right. I said on this show that if everyone in that locker room had Brian Cage's work ethic, everybody would be a lot better. Brian Cage is everywhere every weekend. He just either worked for Progress or Rev Pro. I forget which one.
He did Progress.
Yeah, Progress. So Brian Cage is out there doing Progress on his own. Brian Cage does Warrior shows. Brian Cage goes and does AAA. Brian Cage is everywhere under an AEW contract. So he wasn't being, even when he's been pretty active the last 6 months or so. But before that, he went through a period where, like a fallow period, He was everywhere. He was
Yeah.
everywhere working. We don't see that enough from these people who pick up these like essentially developmental AEW deals. Like maybe Brian Pillman, who just had a little promo time in NXT this past week, little vignette time, I should say. I don't think he got, I know for a fact he didn't get much better, but at the same time, it's like, well, where were you, man? What were you doing extra? I know they took those Varsity Blondes took a few extra dates, but why aren't you banging the doors on those indies? Right.
Yeah.
And I know Tony Khan doesn't want people to lose, but I mean, hell, man, put the Varsity Blondes in there with some freaking young guys, right? Let them beat some dudes up, get them on a show, like make it work. Like this is part of the thing that frustrates me is I don't see enough people in that AEW locker room trying to get better. And I don't think the NXT way is perfect either, where they just beat the shit out of you and you're doing tire flips. And, like, I think they overtrain down there. I think they're in constant like training mode. And you can't just train all the time. Like you're going to get hurt. Like you have to peak and cycle your training. That's just a completely different conversation. I don't think either way is perfect, but there needs to be something better.
The best example I have for someone who went and made work for themselves and has come back and gotten over in AEW is Willow. Willow is she's working beyond wrestling, like right down the street from me. She's been doing that. I think she just had a match there, actually. I'm like, Willie, you are such a bigger star now. You beat Mercedes Moné. You main evented a pay-per-view against Athena. You have all these accolades now, but she's still putting in the work. It's that easy. It's just a matter if you want to, right? Eddie Kingston, for example, he pulled away from indie dates just now, but like he was doing it. And listen, Eddie Kingston doesn't need to be better. Exactly. Eddie just loves wrestling.
40s. Yeah. Like we don't see that enough with some of these guys. Like I don't want to call anybody out because I know Top Flight was taking a bunch of dates right before, but they've had so many injury problems. They were, I think those guys were trying, but there's so many dudes on that roster who I wish Tony was better about getting them out there.
Garcia goes around. He was just on like a West Coast Pro show.
Isn't he still the PWG champion?
He is. Well, they don't run enough, but he is.
They don't run enough. Bad example. But I mean, he is. Like I want to see more guys doing stuff. What I would love to see, and I'm going to move up this right now because Mike and I got to eat a little bit of shit. A couple weeks ago, we made fun of Court Bauer because he's, Court and I've butted heads over the years. But I respect the dude's ability to write a press release. And Mike and I made some jokes because we heard from a buddy of ours that works in Japan that this was kind of a bullshit press release when he said they were having a working relationship with New Japan. And apparently, maybe not. Maybe that is a little bit more real because they put out a nice little press release, again, Court's great at that, saying that New Japan, CMLL, and MLW will have a formal relationship. What do you make of this, Scott?
I think it's great for CMLL because it gets their wrestlers into the US and hopefully more into Japan because I think CML's they're gaining a lot of steam. So finding any relationship is a smart idea. AEW is working with AAA for some reason. So, CMLL doing this, it's great for them. MLW, do you see who the first person they announced was?
I did.
It was Rocky Romero. I was like, all right.
Rocky goes everywhere.
Exactly. I was like, and they build him from CMLL because he's a champion there. And I was like, that's even funnier. But for New Japan, it's like, okay, we just have another place to send talent. And for me, it's probably to send maybe talent like a Yui Uemura, maybe Young Lions more than anything else. I don't think, I'm going to see Will Ospreay pop up in LLW. Remember that? Do you remember when they held that?
That was going to be a thing. That was never a thing.
Yeah, that was a fun one when they had the breaking news thing and then he never showed up. He's going to wrestle on Impact, though, so take that, I guess.
Hey, I'm going. It's going to be down the street from that.
That's
awesome. About an hour away. It's in Chicago. I'm going to, if Will Ospreay is going to wrestle Speedball, like within an hour of me, I got to go. Like, I got to go.
Yeah, you got to go. That's absolutely right. Yeah, but the relationship to me, it's like the 9th strategic relationship of MLW, so.
That's true because I remember being at their first pay-per-view and person only pay-per-view, mind you, in 2019 where they announced the Dragon Gate relationship. That did not happen. I interviewed Alexander Hammerstone when he wrestled in the N1 back in 2019. So they've had MLW. I think they might have done stuff with All Japan too. Like they make relationships. They did stuff with AAA. Now here's the thing: people are like, how did AEW get left out of this? AEW has been. I don't think Tony and Conan go out and hang out all the time,
No.
but their businesses are good for each other. And AEW has featured AAA talent from the get-go. That first
Yeah.
press conference, the Lucha Brothers came out with the AAA tag belts. Sammy Guevara came out with the AAA middleweight belt. Kenny Omega was the mega champion. The current mega champion, El Hijo del Vikingo, has been on the show. They just the AAA talent is just over in AEW, and I know a lot of people would rather they work with the CMLL because it's more of a traditional lucha company. It's probably a better company. I don't watch enough lucha to really
I
make
can tell
that.
you right now, it is.
Yeah, it's pretty much the vibe I've got going on. I'm going to start checking out. CML seems so hot right now that I was like, oh, I got to check out some CMLL, and I know there's some sources on the internet that allow you to check out some CMLL stuff. So I'm going to be
Yeah.
partaking a little bit of that just to sample it, see if it's something I might like. But again, this is better for New Japan and for CML to get their young lions going because, like we just talked about, if AEW is a terrible place to get experience.
Yeah, they can't send a Yuya Uemura there.
No.
They can't do that. That's why they have the Impact and MLW relationships. So if they want to send someone, they go there.
And Impact can't get involved in this because Impact also has a relationship with AAA.
Mhm.
And Impact's gotten a lot of stuff off AAA over the years. So these are companies with established relationships.
Yeah.
And
to me, to me, it's more CMLL, and New Japan's just like jumping in. You know,
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, sure. Like we work with everyone.
Let's look. Yeah, they do. And New Japan is totally open as compared to what it was like 5-6 years ago. Like it's a completely different regime. They're more open to sending guys everywhere now, which is pretty cool. Like I think that the idea of it's the closer we can get to how things were like in the 80s, the happier I am as a human being, because I think it was just a healthier environment, even though Vince McMahon was trying to strangle the life out of everybody. Like it was just a little bit better for like talent can get out there, can get their excursions. Like so much of that prime era New Japan talent got better by coming here in the 1980s, right? And they had that with Ring of Honor. Jay White famously, Evil did his excursion here in the US. Like they have had success sending guys to Rev Pro in the UK. They need to get more guys here in the US. I think Yuya Uemura and Impact did a good one, but I think too they have to make their Mexican partners happy in CMLL. So having this Impact relationship, having this MLW relationship, it just makes sense, especially because MLW booking right now is awful. They're just GCW with a bigger budget.
They are, and there's levels to how New Japan sends talent. I think everyone needs to realize that too, right? MLW is going to get Minoru Suzuki. Congratulations. Everyone does.
Who else? I wrestled Minoru Suzuki once.
Yeah, you might get like one of the other old guys from time to time, or Rocky Romero, for example, who again, he's based here. He'll wrestle everywhere. Impact will get the next step, right? They'll get Kenta or Leo Rush. Like that's a good place to send talent like that. And then AEW gets the main event stars that they want. That's just how it works. And I think everyone's happy with that setup because you know what? People still like to see Minoru Suzuki. Minoru Suzuki versus Jacob Fatu is at their next pay-per-view. I'll probably check that out because that's a pretty cool match. It's like things like that.
Oh yeah, and quite frankly, Jacob Fatu fits in a place like New Japan. He's got some priors. That's the thing about Jacob Fatu. So he can't. It's going to be really hard for him. That's why he's not working with his family right now, right? He's a problem hire, and it's probably why he hasn't jumped on with AEW either. But Japan doesn't care what you have on your resume.
If you
they
show
don't
up,
care.
They don't
Just
care.
show up. Like it's not a business run by the Yakuza anymore. That doesn't happen. But so if we can get Jacob Fatu going a little bit, I think he would get over in New Japan in a heartbeat. I think Alex Hammerstone is a guy who could really impress some people in New Japan, and that's pretty much it. I would say in MLW, there's nobody else that I'd be like, it's not a terrible roster. I love Mance Warner. I don't know how Mance Warner fits in New Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, just realistically speaking.
Yeah. Overall, it's a relationship that works for all sides in different ways. And I think that's the best way to look at it. CMLL now has a partner to get into the US that isn't just New Japan.
Yeah, which is good because let's be real. The CMLL talent is not known to the American audience right now. So it's going to take a while. I mean, like Mystico would be pretty
That's
much it.
Yeah.
And he does not have a great reputation from his
No.
time in WWE. He just doesn't. I was watching some
No.
of the stuff though with highlights with my kid. My kid loves the Scooby-Doo WWE movie, so he thinks Sin Cara and that thing is the coolest thing in the whole world.
As
So
he
I had to
should.
kind of because he looks awesome. And then so
Yeah.
we were watching some Sin Cara highlights from CML. That's kind of what got me started in this. But that's like it. Like nobody in the US really knows anything about Templario, right?
No,
Like it's
no.
just not a thing. But because of Lucha Underground and because they've been fixtures in the US scene for
Yeah.
a decade now, everybody knows Penta, everybody knows Phoenix,
They
right?
get the right new
Specifically.
star, I'd say.
Yeah.
CMLL does. They rename someone's Mascara Dorada, and I think that's going to do really well for that guy.
You think are you being facetious or are you serious?
No, I do. I legitimately do think so because I've seen the new Mascara Dorada, and he's fantastic. I think people may have just forgotten Metalik by now, truthfully.
He's kind of a shell. Like I don't know if going to WWE wound up being the worst thing for him because he does seem like a shell of his former self. Like he
It's a
just
shame.
it really is because a lot of what made that because I remember when that guy came over, right? For the Cruiserweight Classic, everybody went, "Oh my God, Mascara Dorada in WWE? What's that gonna be like?" And for like 6 months, it was really cool.
Yeah.
And then he just, I mean, they kind of, I don't know if they went as far as to do like the Mexicools with him, but I mean, like, wasn't far off.
Lucha House
You know?
Party is pretty bad.
Is awful. Like it was the only difference is they didn't put them on lawnmowers and let them keep their masks. Right? I mean, it wasn't like anyone gave a shit about him. And now he just seems like his confidence is shook out there. Like he doesn't seem like the guy he used to be. It's sad.
He went back to CMLL and they didn't want him back because he pretty much like wasn't the same guy. And then he like I think I don't remember who it was. It might have been like Rob Viper or someone who translated what he said. And he was like, "Oh, you know, the new Mascara Dorada, he moves too fast and doesn't let things rest." I was like, "Oh, Jesus."
He's become that guy.
Yeah.
He sounds like Harley Race. Like, I mean, this is
Yeah.
it just goes to show you that no matter where you are in wrestling, the young guys work too damn fast. It's just hilarious. John Muse, a good buddy. I need that CMLL hookup. I will text you after the show, my friend. I've got it for you. John Muse is one of my favorite human beings in the world. Matthew Justice and Manders are too good in MLW. I agree. Matthew Justice and Manders are awesome. Like I love the Second Gear crew. Like I said, it's GCW booking that's kind of on with better cameras and like actual audio. Like we get on court for production stuff, but I mean, like he's a significant step up than GCW. Like GCW, like yeah, exactly. Like there's Ring of Honor shows from like 2003 that look better than like a GCW show from last week.
Like I know GCW wants to have that underground feel, but
oh, it feels underground, all right. Like buried underground. John Muse, Manners is fun. I agree. Mike and I were in the dying days of Brace for Impact. Mike and I were absolutely convinced that Manders was heading into Impact Wrestling, and it just never happened. And I would much rather see those guys booked in Impact than in MLW, but whatever. It is what it is. But I think that this relationship with this three-way relationship could work wonders for them because I think CMLL needs to get their stars on American eyes, right? And MLW will help that. I think they both need places to send their young talent. So it makes perfect sense. And like I said, AEW doesn't really fit. I think Impact could fit, but I also think it's in their benefit to stick with AAA. Right? AAA is running their shows.
Yeah. CMLL has now used New Japan to get them to Rev Pro and now to MLW. So they have two relationships now I'm guessing through the New Japan pipeline. So they're doing the right things. They're doing the right thing. CMLL 2 years ago, no one talked about them. They were like on the brink of like being gone. And now it's completely reversed. And that's good.
Yes. For them. Kudos to CMLL for being able to revive. That's what the people like, oh, Fed did or AEW in the mud. Like, dude, these companies can get hot again. All he needs one good storyline or one guy to break through, and all of a sudden your program is super hot again. Like wrestling is up and down. I've been around long enough to see these things. It's just kind of what it is. We got another comment here. David Hadley. Yeah, he's being active today, man. Thanks a lot for watching the show. The independents haven't reloaded since 2020 and wrecked a lot of things. Do you think the reason for this is the TV companies like MLW, AAA, Impact, and AEW aren't selfish with their talent? I think you mean as mean are selfish with their talent. I think I think it's been longer than that. I think the indies kind of emptied out when AEW and WWE went into hoarding mode in
Mhm.
2018, 2019. Right.
Yeah.
That was the era when we started stockpiling on the indies. And I think COVID slowed it down a little bit. I think you are seeing more indie talent starting to get out. Like AAA is, you can't think of AAA and those kind of companies as like, in when it comes to the indies, and same with Impact. Impact guys work indies all the time. Like nobody just works an Impact schedule unless you're Bubba Ray. Like that's like everybody else is all over the place. Like I think that Tony should let his guys lose a little bit more because
Yeah.
nobody gives a shit who loses on a Deadlock Pro show.
I
Right.
agree.
And I
Deadlock
just,
Pro is the only good indie, by the way.
yeah, I know. That's why I use them. Deadlock Pro is awesome. They just popped in Warrior too. Like nobody cares.
Warrior's
Like
good. West
Tony's
Coast.
Tony's got to understand that really doesn't matter all that much. John Muse, COVID delayed shows and people started training, slowed down development. Yeah, big time. COVID slowed down lots in this country, and wrestling is included. But I think it's starting to come back a little bit. And
The indies have had one spark over like the last 4 years, and it was Matt Cardona, and GCW threw it away.
That's 100% accurate. That's 100% accurate. Like I think what hurt too is the indies steered really hard into the meme culture stuff. Like, 'cause remember for a while the big thing on the indies, and I love Danhausen. I think he's perfectly at home in AEW right now doing some little comedy stuff when he's healthy and happy. Great. But I mean, like
t-shirts, baby.
Sells t-shirts. So I mean, that's fine. But like when it was Warhorse and like Alley Cat and like Dan the Dad and all that kind of stuff, like that's not, I don't think that's good for the scene personally. If that's like what's driving, you can have that stuff. Like it's great to have comedy on your shows, but I mean, if the point of the indies is to breed the next generation of talent, I don't think that's the way to go, because WWE is not interested in breeding the next generation of talent. They're going to bring a bunch of athletes in. You'll like the Creeds will stick, Tiffany Stratton will stick. That's pretty much it from that group, right? And then you bring another crew in, and like maybe 2 or 3 will stick. And like it's not designed to like this is what WWE is concerned with feeding WWE. They're not concerned with stockpiling the indies. They're not concerned with the health of professional wrestling at large.
Nope.
So they're going to get guys that they're trained. Their mindset is, I'm going to be a WWE guy. When WWE cuts them, they're donezo.
Yep.
So the indies have to kind of replenish themselves. And unfortunately, because we're not in talent hoarding mode, but now it's still like Daniel Garcia, he started getting big, boom, got picked up, right? Anytime someone starts getting a little bit of steam underneath them, they're getting snatched up, which isn't great. But that's kind of the nature of the beast right now. Warhorse is a meme wrestler, but also a very good wrestler. I see him do some amazing work. I can't say that. Every time I've seen Warhorse, he's been fine. And when he got his big shot in AEW, he didn't look very good. And like people were like rallying back in the COVID days, like people rallied to get that match happening, and it did. And he's like the only guy that they brought in that didn't get signed, and it wasn't great. I think Warhorse is a fine indie worker.
Every meme wrestler saw Orange Cassidy and thought they could be Orange Cassidy.
Forgetting Orange Cassidy is really good at wrestling.
And Danhausen, he just sells a lot of merch. It doesn't matter if he can wrestle.
He's really good at being a meme wrestler.
He is.
Right?
He's really good with kids too.
Yeah, I mean, like
it goes a long way.
He's different. Like Danhausen,
he is.
He's like a
Can't
character
crack
from
that code.
No, he's unique. Like he's like I was trying to explain to my wife. I'm like, he's a Simpsons character, right? Like he's like a Simpsons character brought to life, and like he's just something different, right? And it's like you can't try to emulate his success because you'll fail, right? It's not good to try to be the next Danhausen. So we have Nakajima has left Pro Wrestling Noah.
Yeah, that was as big as a like move I think that can happen in Japan right now. And to be honest, to me, I thought this was going to happen a year ago, just because of how certain things went. You know, he lost to Fujita, knocked out Tetsuya Endo, knocked out another guy. It just seemed like all was downhill, but he lasted a lot longer than I thought. And then this just kind of came out of nowhere, right? Axis had reformed and it seemed like all was going good, and now he's gone. And I have my preferences. I know Tokyo Sports kind of threw out there that he has interest in maybe doing America. And I think there's only one spot that America might work for Katsuhiko Nakajima. I could tell you WWE wouldn't. I'll tell you that right now, confidently.
He is a terrible fit for WWE. Terrible fit for
He's
WWE.
5'9", hits
Yeah.
really hard.
And he's kind of a dick.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like-
that wouldn't work.
No, he's gonna get NXT and someone's gonna like do something wrong, and he's gonna kick the ever living shit out of him because he's Kensuke Sasaki trained, and like it's not like I don't know, man. I think if they're even starting to sniff around Nakajima to WWE, like Kenta, like look at Kenta, look how terrible a fit Kenta was. He's
Yeah.
never been the same. Nakajima's what 35-ish?
Yeah. He's 35.
Yeah, I mean, like I get why you'd want to try, but he's a bad fit. So you think he's AEW?
I think he's all Japan, truthfully. I think
You
that's
think he's
just
all
the-
Japan.
I do. I think
Really?
something for him resparked with Kento. I think that is a smaller pond, an even smaller pond. And I think with the way all Japan books will fit Nakajima better, and it'll be the greatest trade of all time. They traded Jake Lee for Katsuhiko Nakajima, which to me is like a really good trade for all Japan. But I think he could work freelance for a little bit, but I feel like all Japan might be his next home unless Glade's paying people like crazy again, which they do, and then don't do anything.
They do. Glade is also not affiliated with the Yakuza. Their Glade is a stand-up operation.
It is ran
totally
by
on the
Shima,
level.
which you can take that for what you will. If you know who Shima is.
Shima's never done anything sketchy. I love the idea of Nakajima. I would love to see AEW bring in Nakajima for just a couple shows. It would just be, oh my god, would be awesome. Nakajima Danielson, holy shit, would that be great? I would oh my god, I would love that. Now I was not like the rumor I had heard is him to New Japan, and I was wondering how that would kind of go because like he would kind of freshen up some of the top of the card, like another veteran level guy who hasn't been there since 2016.
Does Los Ingobernables de Japón need a new member? Because that's where he would go for me. Like, he's like one of those guys. When Shingo came in, I was like, all right, you go right there. Nakajima's, would they put him in the heavyweight division?
I think if they wouldn't, he doesn't go.
That's what I was thinking, because I think that would be the decision there. Because you would think instantly he is now the top free agent in Japan.
Has to be. Who would be a bigger free agent in Japan rather than Katsuhiko Nakajima?
I don't think there's anyone. At least there hasn't been. And usually towards the end of the year in Japan, that is when free agents start to happen. I mean, Ospreay will be a free agent soon. I guess that technically
fair. I mean, like, but he's not right now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Nakajima. No comment. No
That just ruined my train of thought.
Yeah, same here. That's why I had to pull it up. I'm like, oh, that's some deep cuts right there. I love the idea. I would love to see Nakajima come in just for a little bit again because he's so different than he was in 20. Like he did the 2016 G1. Didn't go fantastic for him. Kind of similar to how not Miyahara. Who was in the G1 this year from Noah?
Oh,
I can't think of his name. Kaito Kiyomiya. Yeah. God damn it. Kiyomiya, like New Japan really kind of shit on Kiyomiya this year. Right?
Sadly.
Like he's excellent, but they really kind of treated him just like a dude, right? Like, I don't know. New Japan takes every opportunity possible to big brother Noah, and Noah always just seems to kind of take it.
And they're all in on it.
Oh, yeah. And they're like, yes, more. We'll take it.
They sent their young lion there. That guy's probably going to beat like half the roster. Oiwa?
Probably.
I think it's Oiwa.
Yeah. That guy's good. That guy's going to be good.
They're printing out young lions right now.
The dojo system is like, it's like replenished because they went through a bit of a streak, and now you're starting to see those dojo guys from a few years ago really starting to pay off and become guys and become dudes in the company. So I mean, it's a matter of time for Yota Tsuji is the IWGP champion, right? Yeah, matter of time.
I think he's on a fast track. He just had that incredible match with Ospreay for last weekend, which was like I think that was like his official coming out party. It was his full big time match. But yeah, New Japan's so stacked that it's like, do they need free agents? Maybe. And I'll talk to you about this, and I guess
Yeah.
this is a little off topic,
Later.
but I do think New Japan's going to be a very interesting spot now because there is a very, very likely scenario where AEW takes back-to-back years their top international talent, right? Jay White and now Osprey.
Mhm.
They're just better to lean on their Japanese guys more and more right now. And if they were to sign a Nakajima, for example, I think that would be an interesting addition to offset the loss. You can't offset Osprey because, again, the international aspect and what that brings in for certain crowds. But still, I think they have to get creative right now. And I think a guy like Nakajima, the continuation of pushing their not young lions anymore, but their new future guys, that is pretty much how they do it.
The thing about New Japan is like this happens to them, right?
Oh yeah, they're used to it.
Yeah, Fergal got real big. He went to WWE, and they pop AJ in, right? AJ works as their top international guy. He's out. Kenny steps in, right? Kenny steps out. Boom, there goes out. There's Jay White. Boom, there goes Osprey. They kind of do this. Maybe David Finlay is the next guy. I think DJ Carl. They had big eyes for if he could have just been a little more patient, but now he's DJing it up at Club NXT and looking fantastic. So. It's going great.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I'm with you. I think that we're definitely in a transitional phase with New Japan Pro Wrestling right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like Joe on the flagship show has always said that this is the end of the Okada era is over in New Japan. Like he's still a top guy, but the supporting players are aging out, and it's time for the next wave of guys to start really filtering in and becoming guys, right? And they're giving them the opportunity, right? It's New Japan, so it's a slow roll. Like American fans are, we want dudes pushed to the moon immediately. That's why do companies have 80,000 belts? It's because fans like, why didn't this guy have a belt? Why didn't that guy have a belt? How come this guy didn't have a belt? This guy needs a belt. And I make jokes, but New Japan also has 80 belts. So
all I wanted was Yota Tsuji or Shota over Hikuleo in the G1. That's all I asked for.
No, you don't get that. We have to push the giant.
Or Kaito. I've heard Kaito was also in
there. Man, I thought they would do Noah a solid. Was I wrong on that one? That was some you don't matter booking if I've ever seen it. Kaito Kiyomiya's someone should write a book. It's not gonna be me. I don't want to write that book about how that guy has just been big brothered by everybody. He gets that title run in 2019 and just is totally not ready for it, right? Mm-hmm. And he becomes like the Muto understudy and just freaking gets beat by Muto so many times. And he finally loses. He finally wins, but it's like nobody freaking cares. And then he's like Muto's young boy coming to the States. It just has not worked well for him. That's a guy who maybe should consider going somewhere else, to be honest with you.
I think New Japan would sign him in seconds if he ever became free.
Because he's really good, and I think he would actually fit there.
And they'd have a money feud on their hands if they had him and Okada under the same.
Dude, that was great. That was some of my favorite stuff from the beginning of the year. What amazing chemistry those guys have. And when Okada dials into dickhead mode, golly, what an ass hat. Like, he's so good at it.
Yeah, that fun. It was his best version of him since the God run that he had a few years ago.
Yeah, I agree 100%. No, 100%. I don't think Noah's I don't think they're in a rush to get rid of Kiyomiya, but I'm gonna be honest with you. Noah's gonna be an interesting place. Did you see the big news today? WWE Raw SmackDown is going to be screening on Abema TV in Japan. Now, Abema also has New Japan Television. They own their co-owners. I forget. Justin will correct me. Of Pro Wrestling Noah. So and then they had so they had a thing. I think it was the little commercial spot they did with Kano today, announcing it. It was pretty humorous. Kano got a great sense of humor. This is very interesting with WWE kind of encroaching in Japanese territory.
Yeah, I saw the Kano video and I was like, oh man, they have you doing this. I was like, could have picked anyone else just because I love him. And I was like,
oh, Kano's great.
I don't want you to be holding money in the bank.
no, I died a little inside watching that, to be quite honest with you. Like I died. It was awful.
Yeah. Noah, I don't think this has anything to do with Noah, but Noah's in a very interesting situation moving forward. In terms of WWE, they've tried to get to Japan many times.
Oh yeah, tried to buy Stardom,
They
tried to buy
Stardom.
All Japan, tried to buy. I think they tried to buy Noah too before
they did.
Cyberation picked him up. Like they've just struggled to find a foothold in that Japanese market. They
Mhm.
got a foothold now.
They do, and I think with this, maybe it's not that big. Maybe it's literally just Raw and SmackDown being on there, and that is all. But WWE's WWE. I never
That's
think
what I'm saying.
that's all. That's the
Right.
problem.
Mhm.
I hope that's all because I don't want them really touching any of the companies I enjoy. But being on this channel specifically, I get a little worried.
I do. New Japan is New Japan. I mean, isn't Tony Khan going to buy New Japan? Isn't that the rumor that we heard flying?
Yeah.
Tony Khan?
Yeah. Bushiroad just could be like, yeah, take this.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Take- It's hilarious. Like, do Americans realize how difficult that is for an American to buy a Japanese company? Like, that will just no.
My reasoning was Tony Khan just said like the other day his life's like terrible because of Collision. You want him to buy a company in Japan?
Yeah. Yeah, that's just hilarious. But they have tried to make NXT Japan a thing for a long time. And I hope against hope that we don't see like a Noah become NXT Japan or something like that. Although it is interesting to me that Noah's sister promotion DDT has a relationship with AEW,
Mm-hmm.
and there potentially could be something between. And this has been brewing, I think, for a bit since the Shinsuke match, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when I saw that, I was like, this is interesting. They put Muto in the hall.
You know they want something back for that.
There's something like, you know what? I thought it was just Muto going to the Hall of Fame. Like, that's just not them, man. That's just not how they operate over there. The Abima deal pretty much seems like that might be the future. And again, here's the thing: WWE wrestling doesn't really translate to Japanese wrestling fans. The people in Japan who like WWE are American fans, like because they have American culture fans in Japan. And that's a different fan base than pro wrestling fans. So I'm super curious to see how Raw and SmackDown do on a network that also one screens Noah and New Japan. Like, how does it fit in there? That's going to be a story that I want to watch play out in 2024 because WWE just don't walk into a place and go, oh, we'll just hang out here for a while. And they don't have like virus plans.
No, they don't know how to do that. Everyone saw the UK scene get destroyed essentially by WWE. I mean, don't get me wrong, the UK scene did a really good job at destroying itself later on. But my point remains, they did a really good job. Yeah. And going to Japan, I think it's still very different because, like you said, WWE isn't just gonna like make fans there. I just don't think that's how it is. Because if you like pro wrestling, you like pro wrestling. You like New Japan. You like. I would say Noah because Noah's very much. They don't care about it outside. They care about their fans in Japan. That's it. I think Justin was on your show a few months ago and brought that up. Like that's what they're focused on.
Yep.
So it's more just me. Like I'm gonna keep an eye on it because they don't just do things simple because this is WWE.
Yeah, I played this game before, so I'm gonna raise the eyebrow and kind of watch how this plays out. Scott, we got you on, so let's wrap up a little bit. Tell me what's going on with Joshi right now. You gave us a Joshi segment last week that did really, really good numbers for our show and our YouTube channel, and I really appreciate that. So if I got you here, man, I gotta say, what's Mariah May did great on YouTube. Shocking. So tell me what's happening with Joshi right now. What do we got to know about?
Yeah, this weekend, this Saturday, 5-star Grand Prix final. The final. I think I said this last week, but I'll say it again. The finals of the biggest women's wrestling tournament of the year on 3 a.m. Eastern time. If anyone's interested in checking, or you can just buy the pay-per-view and watch it after. That's always what I recommend if you're not crazy like me. You can always check out the 5-star Joe Show live on the Fight Game Media Network.
You should do that.
YouTube channel at 3 p.m. that same day because I'll be reviewing it. Just saying if you want to do that. But yeah, it's really just about Stardom's big tournament and building to the year end. A lot of Joshi right now is pretty quiet outside of the return of Suri. formerly known as Saray
Mhm.
in WWE. Of course, everyone knows how she was handled, which was very badly.
Magic
Um,
portals.
yeah, Magic Portals, but she has come back and she is pretty much single-handedly re-inspired the rest of the scene by just being there. You step into WWE, you are a bigger star. Plain and
That's true.
simple.
That's
even
true.
if it was for like a cup of tea, pretty much like she was there. She was still there for 2 years. So
Mhm.
to them, that's enough. So she's doing a lot of great work. Julia's heading back to America in October for I'll talk about Mariah May in a second because that worked out so well for me last time. I just woke up Saturday. I was like, why do I see my name popping up on Twitter? Oh,
Did you get bombarded with stuff?
yeah, I sure did.
Sorry, but not real sorry, 'cause it helped me.
It worked, you guys. It works for you guys. Mike told me after like it had happened. I was like, all right. I was like, sure. But as I was saying, Julia's coming back to America in October, so another opportunity for maybe not WWE. Jesus Christ, not WWE, for AEW to get her on a show finally, because I
Mhm.
think that's what people have been clamoring for. Last time she came here, she was on an Impact show.
Mhm.
Impact won. Impact got a win.
They did.
Impact got a win. They got Julia, and she was like the biggest star on
They're
that
having a
show.
good year.
They are. They are. Somehow, some way, they are.
Mhm.
So she's coming back in October. She'll be on the Fighting Spirit Unleashed show. And Mariah May, I know, is the big talking point. 5-star Grand Prix final will be her final show for now. I'll say for now, because you never know in
Never know.
wrestling, but she is finishing up. She will be heading home to the UK and beyond that point. I know Dave said how I believe he said she told Stardom one thing or the other. We don't know where she's really going. I still feel pretty. I think AEW is just, so many things are said after a while. You just kind of think eventually, but it is criminal we didn't get her versus Mayu for the IWGP title. That would have been the perfect send off for her. That was a match she really wanted. The IWGP title, I don't mean to take this over, but the IWGP title was a title that Bushiroad wanted
Mhm.
by the looks of it. Stardom didn't want it. New Japan clearly didn't want it. You saw the minus under 6-minute match at Wrestle Kingdom
They don't
between
care.
between Kyrie and Tam. To me, I don't think either side wanted it, and that's why it's not defended. The strong women's title is different because that title goes to America, and that
Mhm.
title's kind of just that title doesn't have IWGP hanging over it, so it can just be freely defended. I think it's really tough to just defend the IWGP name. And I think that's why, like, Mayu, since beating Mercedes Moné for it, has defended it once. That was in
Wow.
April.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say about that.
They created a strong women's championship for Mercedes Moné after that.
Yeah.
And that has been defended like 5 times.
Well, it has
6
3
times.
champions now too.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure has. Crazy, huh?
Yeah, I'm like speechless. That's wild to me because this
Yeah.
was big news last year. It was IWGP Women's Championship. They're finally going to get their due in New Japan, and I was like, boy, New Japan just does not like. I'm curious to see how this works. And it turns out it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It is a title, like I said, that you put the IWGP letters on, it becomes prominent in that standing. Otherwise, the strong women's title, I think, is handled a lot more like they wanted that to originally be. And it's on Julia, so that probably helps. But I don't know. That's about all I got for Joshi. If you want to check it out, if you want to check out the best of Stardom, it's this Saturday. That's going to be your best bet to dive in. There's been a lot of injuries, but it's still one of their best nights. They put it all together. And yeah.
Scott, tell them where they can find you on socials.
Yeah, if you can find me at Scott E Wrestling on Twitter, X, whatever you prefer to call it. I don't think I'll ever call it X first.
Twitter.
Yeah, it still says Twitter on my computer. So as far as I'm concerned, it's twitter.com. And then, yeah, check out the Fight Game Media YouTube channel this Saturday. I will be going live at 3 p.m. Eastern to talk about the 5-star Grand Prix finals. And I've been reviewing. I have a preview up on voicesofwrestling.com. I don't know if there's any other previews out there, but I'll say it's the best preview in the business.
I guarantee it
because
is.
I put a lot of work into that thing. So it sets it all up for you. It tells you the scenarios, the matches, my prediction that I'm not all that confident about for once, and the matches you need to check out from the tournament. I even did that. I cut out the fat, so you just have to watch like 5-6 matches if you're interested.
There is no American that is as tuned into what's going on in the Joshi scene as Scotty Wrestling. This man writes amazing work for stuff that I don't follow, but I read his work because it's well done, it's well researched, it's well written. I can't say enough good things about him. Happy you're on the show today. Make sure you follow us at the Mike and JD Show here on the Voices of Wrestling Network. Make sure you follow the Mike and JD Show on YouTube too. Make sure you check out our Patreon page, Mike and JD Show on Patreon. Make sure you check all that stuff out. Thanks for joining me, Scott. Mike, we miss having you, and can't wait to see you guys next week. I'm JD, and I don't know the Hawaiian word for goodbye. We'll see you next time.
Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A game. Amen. No rain from the track when we unite and spit. This isn't A game, better bring your A game. Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A game.